Alrighty, welcome to Weekends Web App. Today is day 22, and this is a stream where we build a web app from start to finish, all on stream. And if you want to play along at home, and if you've pulled down the repository already, you can grab today's day by or where I start rather by using git checkout day 21. And that'll get you started right where my code is right now. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so yesterday, might as well just jump straight into it. I'll just get our server up and running, and we'll take a look around and see what we've got. So yesterday we set up an aspect of our app for the Chrome, and you can see sort of our nav and our footer here, and they are being rendered. And what used to be something that we did manually is now being done by the system, by the rendering system. So if we look in our renderer, we'll see this concept of Chrome bundles coming in. And it uses those Chrome bundles to do a render on the Chrome, and also do a render, do an update on the Chrome as it sits around. So that gives us sort of a start there. And if we're looking here, we can see that there's a type error there. So I might go and fix that. Yeah, let's get rid of that. So the third type, well, that's going to be a void. That way it doesn't have to return anything, doesn't have to use anything. We just don't update this particular item, and you can see that that is no longer giving us problems, which is good, what we're after. Anyway, oh wait, maybe not. It doesn't like it at all. Yeah, no, we'll leave it be for now. It's not a big deal. So this Chrome concept allows us to sort of define some content, such as this navigation, which doesn't have a whole lot in it, and define some, in addition to that, or this counter that sits in the footer. And we can keep all the logic together, we can initialize it, and then we can update it. So that's sort of all we need for Chrome, mainly because this is persistent UI. It hangs around it. We don't get rid of it or anything like that. So we don't need to do anything more with it. With our views, we need to do a little bit more, right? So at the moment, our views, let's take a look at where they live. I'll get rid of this as well. Get that out of the way. So the way we currently have our views is we just add the routes, and these functions are in line. And this, I mean, this isn't great. This this top level, this app.ts, should be more like it's an organization. It organizes all the code together, okay? And if we're doing it this way, it's not going to organize it particularly well, right? So we want to figure out something better to do with this, right? So what we're going to do is start to pull out the same logic of these these bundles. Start to pull out this same logic and see if we can get something that sort of makes sense here. So let's start with creating a folder. We jump around and we'll jump into client and into UI, and we've got Chrome, and we'll make ourselves a directory of views. And we'll start to put our views in there and just to sort of figure out a bundle that sort of fits in that context, right? So let's start off with the home function, or the home view rather. So we'll go views.home.ts. Now let's just pull out these two functions that we know we'll need and go from there. Pretty big one, isn't it? That's fine. Let's pull out these functions and we'll go from there. So we're all going to have type errors light up, and we're just going to pull in a few things just like Chrome does. So Chrome and both of them, they're definitely going to need the weekend's web app context and the weekend's web app state and the weekend's web app actions. That's pretty expected, right? So we've got those bits and pieces there. Now let's clean it up and figure out what these concepts that we have here are. So this first one, this is the preload function. We know that because we can see here we've got this this element here that just essentially gets all the items that are necessary, and then the second element here, this does all the work for actually getting the second one here does the work of actually rendering. Okay, and it does a lot of work every single time. It keeps on rendering, so it's working possibly harder than it needs to. But anyway. So if we talk about, sorry, not that initialize, but rather a preload, and it doesn't like the promise just because I haven't saved yet. Once I save, it'll be all good with that one. And we just need to sort out this function as well. So this is, I guess it's a render. It's not really a render, and the problem with it, I guess, is that, let me think the best way to say this. The problem with it is it renders, but it doesn't necessarily, yeah, it just chucks things into the element that it's given. So I guess, I mean, technically it could be both initialize and update, and it would be acceptable. So maybe I'll just keep it as render for now, and I'll sort of figure that stuff out soon. Now you can see here we've got a slight issue that our get URL and our route stack stuff is not available to us because that was just a variable that we put in app state. And you'd probably think that this is a pretty good candidate for putting into our context, and you'd be right, really. So let's deal with that particular problem. So we'll just save this file and start to go and deal with sort of the missing pieces of the system at the moment. So if we jump in here, we've got this get URL function. Where was that sitting? So get URL, where did that come from? Came from routing here. So this is probably the point where we need to figure out what exactly it is that we need to put into our context to really have things behave as they're intended. Because at the moment, they don't. We have this, we construct this route stack that you can see just here. We construct this route stack, but then we don't really put it into context in any particularly sensible way. And we sort of need to, yeah, we need to rectify that problem before we can truly realize all of this sort of routing and whatnot. And what this probably means is we need to properly decouple the concept of the rendering. Okay, you can see here we've got this preload function and this view render function, and this stuff is maybe sitting in the wrong spot. I wouldn't object to the preload. The preload function does need to be called by the router, but once it's out of the router's hand, once that's done, then everything else is in the renderer's hands. So it's possibly not the best place here to be keeping these concepts. We need to figure out a way to get the router sort of initialized, and then after that we sort of do the rest of the work as we need to. So that looks like what we need to like a major issue that we have with our system currently is that we're rendering all, like building out all these views here, and we don't really have any way to control that and put that into our context down here. So that seems like a fairly major aspect of what we need to do here. Yeah, so how do we address that? I guess the interesting thing about this is we've got this we've got these stores here, and we've got this context here. And we need to, yeah, we need to untangle these concepts a bit if we're to get this to work right. Luckily, like the initialize router function isn't that complicated anymore. It has this store subscribe, and we did go through this step by step a while ago, and we've got this concept of preload with a route and all that sort of good stuff. But what we're likely going to need to do is have some sort of a register for like a collection of view bundles, and then that way we can decouple our route concept from our view concept, because at the moment we sort of have them caught together. So let's explore down that path of just thinking, okay, we've got the concept, we need the concept of a view bundle. We know this for sure, and we will give every view a particular ID. And in addition to all of this, we will need a preload. And the preload will be optional. That's my take on it anyway. There should be an option to preload, because you might not always need to preload. So let's roll down that. And what else do we need? We need the context and the state. When we do that, when we initialize, we certainly need the container and the state. I wonder whether there would be a case where we need to kick off some sort of post load, although technically that post load stuff could just be done in initialize. So maybe we'll just ease off on that one for now. And then you might have heard me refer to this last time. We do absolutely need a concept of destroying after we're done. And that destroy function will get rid of the view, so that then we don't have to render it anymore. And that'll be like after the transition has taken place. And there might be more functions to go into this concept of a view, because eventually the views will need to talk to the Chrome, update the Chrome, and all that sort of thing. But for the moment, this will suffice for my thinking, and we'll just address things as we need them. Okay, so say we have these view bundles, right? Then let's sort of explore this in a types only sort of way, because we don't actually have any code to support this, right? But let's say we were to have a concept of view bundles. And I guess this home.ts sort of matches it, right? So if we jump into home.ts, we've got this preload and this render. And the render could easily be both the initialization and the not. So let's carry on with that. Now, these parameters, these were missing from the concept of Chrome. And that's possibly just fine, because those parameters will exist in the state. So let's just leave them in the state, right? Like if we look at weekends web app state, let me do it over here. If we look at weekends web app state, okay, we've got the routing state shape. So let's now go to routing.state /state. It has the loaded route name and the loaded route parameters. So that is sufficient for us to do the rendering that we need. It doesn't help routes when they're on the way out, but any route that's on the way out should cease to render at that point. Like it doesn't get any updates pushed into it until it's sort of out of its way. All right. So I think I know what we've got to do. We've got to take home.ts and match this shape, right? So these view bundles, at the moment this doesn't have a type, it's just an any type, right? So we need to start to put some view bundles in it. So let's take a look at home.renderer. Look at the type signature that we've got here of view ID, preload, initialize, and update, and destroy. Now, I don't need to do anything particularly special to tear this down, right? So let's just say that destroy is almost nothing happening, right? We need to get rid of the concept of parameters because we're going to be just depending on context here. And we're not going to be using the render unit state. So this guy here, we're not going to save anything for now. We're just going to try and get our code in the right box and see how things work, right? We can change this to element actually. That's more honest about what it is. And what we can also do is we can go grab our type. So we need to import view bundle from our platform layer / renderer, and that's it. Okay. So now let's create ourselves a view bundle. So we'll call it const view bundle, and we'll give it a type of a view bundle, which needs to have a state. So weekends web app state, weekends web app context, and then finally we're just going to have void as our type. So what do we need here? We need a view ID, and we'll call that home. That'll do. What else do we need? We need a preload. We don't need a preload, but we want a preload in this particular case. So we'll give it preload, and we'll make initialize be render. We'll make update be render, and we'll make destroy be that destroy function. And that is everything we need for that view bundle. And we can also export default view bundle. Good. Okay. So if we take it from there, now we're currently looking at the home page here, right? So potentially we should be able to get this to render without having to go through and do all of the other views. And if we do that, then that sort of proves our point before we go ahead and do that with everything else, right? So if we set that up like that, then theoretically we should be able to bring in our home view from here. Whoops. Home view rather. So we've got our view bundles there. We know for certain that the initialize, the render is going to need it, and unfortunately, we're also going to need it in the router to get a hold of that preloader, and that's fine, right? Like that's the way it is. I'm still happy with the way the architecture is looking. So let's just acknowledge the way things have to be. So we'll chuck in view bundles here, and we'll chuck in view bundles here. Type's not going to like it, but we just sort of have to take it. We'll go and jump into our renderer. Just let it know that view bundles exist as a concept. So you can see here Chrome bundles, view bundles appear after it, so that's what we're going to put into it. So view bundles, view bundle. Okay, so next off we've got to deal with a router, or routing rather, and this time when we initialize the router we need to keep track of these view bundles, so unfortunately we're going to have to go import that. Not unfortunately, it's just the thing that we're going to have to do rather. So let's grab view bundle as a concept from, let's go renderer. And now that we've got that, we should be able to chuck that in here with a similar type signature. So that's before stores. Okay, view bundles, and that'll be a view bundle array. And let's sort out these types. So unfortunately, we need to do any, and we need to do a, and then we need to do any again. Yeah, that'll have to do. Oh, actually, no, it's not routing action shape, it's context. That's the way. All right, that's better. Okay, so with that put together, all the types are back to being happy. Now, what this also means is that our route stack is suddenly, well, it's a lot fatter than it needs to be. So let's just say, so I'm just going to take a moment to comment out all of this code that is currently not meant to exist. So we don't want any of these routes. Okay, what we want to do is we want to put routes on the route stack. And this time, instead of putting on functions, we just make the association. We don't need a preloader or a renderer. We just need a name, a matcher, and then a view name. And this is for the, I mean, I have used it in even a simple app where sometimes you have a view that is used from two different URLs, and so you sort of want to refer to a particular URL. You want a particular name for the route, and then sometimes you want a different name for the view itself. But when we do this, what we can do is make it so that with these matches, like if we were to add a route, what we could do is add to the route based on, okay, if you provide a view name, we'll use that. Otherwise, we'll just use the name, right? So you can go view name, and that'll be either view name or name. And that would give us a route stack, right? And each route path would be sort of behaving itself. So you can see here, like I could go home view if I wanted to or whatever, but in this case, it's fine. I'm happy for the route to be named the same as the view. And we'll just check that I actually did put that in the view ID. Yeah, so the view ID is home, so that's fine. Okay. Now we don't really need those new lines here, are we? Okay. So we've got ourselves a route, and that's fine. We've put that together. And now we should be able to sort of give ourselves some sort of way to work with things down here. So if we've got this route stack, what it now knows is, okay, we've got all these view bundles attached, and we can use those view bundles to reference the use those view bundles and create a reference to all of them, and just pick them out as we need to based on which one matches the route. Unfortunately, we have broken a lot of code here, so we're going to have to deal with this, hey? So here where we've got this preload, that's a problem. We need to deal with that. Luckily though, it doesn't look like we have many places to touch here, so let's get stuck in. And in fact, we can probably get rid of the route stack on the router, but let's deal with this area first. So with these view bundles, at the moment they're not keyed, and what we want to probably do is just to make them a little faster, we're gonna key them first. So we're going to convert it from an array to an object that'll give us everything we need, and that'll be key, string, and then view bundle, any, c, any for our types, right? Well, yeah. There we go. Okay. So from there, what we can do is just we'll run over our view bundles. So view bundles dot for each. What am I doing here? Right, yep. So VB, and it already knows the type of all of them. So for each of these, all we're going to do is just chuck it into keyed view bundles based on VB dot view ID. And that's pretty much it. And then once we do that, we should theoretically be able to get the preload to happen. If we here, where it's found a route, good for you. Now what we need to do is find a view. So we can go const view bundle equals keyed view bundles route dot view name. Just for consistency, I'm going to call that view ID instead. I might change my mind down the track, but that's fine. I'm not too stressed about it. Okay, so now we could potentially do our view bundle concept here. And what parameter result has an AnyType? Right, okay. So we need to deal with that. Implicitly has an AnyType. Give it to me. I'm all good with that. Although, let's see what it actually talks about here. So we've got this concept of a promise any here. Yeah, so let's address that in our types. So in renderer index.ts, yeah, the preload comes back with render unit state. That's not on. That's not on. What we really want is we want a promise, and that's an any. Now that'll stop complaining about that particular return because it knows it gets a promise from it. So that's fine. View bundle comes back, all good. Now, if we get a failure here, then maybe we can do something like this. So this would be considered a 500 error, really. So if not view bundle, then we do something. And what would that something be? It would sort of be just a return after giving some sort of an error, right? So if we don't find the view bundle, then we can come back with an error of 500. So yeah, we'll just notify our intrepid programmer, whoever that intrepid programmer happens to be, that we did not find their particular view ID. So what do we call that? Route.view ID. And then we return true at that point. Otherwise, we carry on. So that's our null check right there. Okie dokie. What's next? So theoretically, that would kick it off. It would kick off the preload, but it wouldn't do the render. So I mean, let's just check whether that happens. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world to check. So main route to render is not a function. Great. Okay, so that got all the way to the renderer, but then it failed, and that's what that error came up for. So we should be able to close that gap now by doing a similar strategy to what the view bundles did, what the router did, except in the renderer. So let's look at that renderer and essentially take the same tack. And we're going to keep track of render unit states right here. Very good. Okay, so jumping into here, we've got these keyed view bundles. We brought them in just the same as before, and now we should be able to get ourselves all the information we need for a particular view, right? So main route to render is this concept here. Now, the way it works at the moment is it bases it off app state routing loaded route name, right? So we can get a route name, but we don't get the view ID from it. So that's what that's doing right here. So the main route to render is what gives that to us. Now let's jump in a little bit deeper. Main route to render. Okay. So main route to render is all very well and good, but that's not actually what we use to render, and you can see that here. what we really want is we want to grab the view bundle. So that would come from keyed view bundles main route to render dot view ID, and then that is the one we call to get this work done. Try the render, trigger this if it fails. Expected free arguments, but got, okay, because we give it the view parameters, which we don't want to do. Now for this main route to render, why does not, oh, that's interesting. View ID does not exist on route path, but it does. So we've got that view ID there, and I've saved that. So why are you convinced that it does not exist on this one? And that's probably because the fake renders aren't there. Because I believe, yeah, that render error function, that's sort of like the fake that we create. So we need to deal with that because we've got that right. Where is that one? Main route to render. Here we go. So you can see here, if it's an error, then we just get this. So view ID, yeah, and we're gonna have to deal with this. We're gonna have to deal with this as a concept. So at the moment, the way we do it is we pull it together using routestack.renderError, and we need to do something different to that. And really what we probably want to do is create our own view bundle just for errors, right? So let's get that one out of the way. Yeah, let's get that one out of the way. So we'll jump into client UI views and keep in mind the preload is optional, so this isn't a bad, I mean technically it'll never use it, but yeah, this isn't a bad one to do. We'll use the sort of same tack as we did before. So let's grab the reload. What am I looking for? Let's grab the home.ts as a sort of a scaffold. Go to error.ts. Views error. Did I ever even save it? Oh, errors. Yep, okay. Let's copy and paste that in, and then we'll get rid of the preload. We do not want it. We will pull out the rendering, the error rendering function from the route stack. So that's this function right here. Make that our renderer. Now we've still got some issues with get URL and whatnot, but we'll get to them. Don't worry, we will get to them. And we'll take the same tack as this. That function's kind of alright, but we need to deal with these parameters. So let's do just that. I'll just get rid of all this extraneous code that we don't actually need. And we'll grab ourselves the view ID of error. Get rid of the preload, and now we've got all the things that we need in there. And here we need to remove this dependence on parameters. So let's do just that. We'll go appstate dot routing dot loaded route params. And, oops, hang on, loaded route params.code. And this gets a little long, right? So how about we do view params equals app state dot routing dot loaded route params. Actually, to save us some grief, we'll just do this. That'll do. That's fine. Okay. Now all of these here, we've got these get URL route stack sort of functions. Now let's put that into context. That's really where it belongs. Now I could create a proper sort of container for this concept, so that I could just transplant it wherever I want. But for now, what I'll do is just sort of take the easy way out of this, and just try and get it into the system in a fairly brief way. So what I could do is essentially create a function. So if we look at routing index here, and we go to matching.ts, you can see a function here, name and then parameters, and that is pretty much all it is, name and parameters, and then it returns in response a string of some description. Okay, so what we're going to do with that is we're going to translate that into something that goes within our context interface. So if we jump into appstate.ts, okay, this weekend's web app context, we're going to add a function to it called getURL, and we're just going to provide a function definition that matches what we want to do. So essentially it's going to be view name, or route name rather, followed by optional parameters, which are of any type, and then returning a string. So that is the type for the weekend's web app context. And what this means is we could boil this down to what we really want to do, which is something like that, right? So that's feeling pretty nice, right? Okay, so, and you can always just structure them out if you want something a little bit neater or whatever, but that context is, that is what it's for, right? Is pulling that stuff around. And as I said, we can put together something that's a little nicer for doing stuff with routes, but this one's acceptable for now. This isn't so great, this string. Maybe we can put some enumeration or context in there, but this will do. As I said, this will do for now. Okay, so if we've got that, jump into app.ts, and we just need to actually make that function, right? And turns out it's not that hard to do. But before I do that, I'll just make the types not happier about the fact that I don't have the route stack in hand. Turns out the route stack's getting awfully simple now. We might just need an array of route paths, but we'll get there. Okay. So next up, we want to put that little function in here. So what does that function look like? Well, if we call it getURL, what it's going to be is a function that takes a name and parameters, and just passes it on to getURL. So we would simply use getURL, the one that comes from the router. We'd pass in the route stack, give it the name, and give it the params, and we are done. Like dinner. In fact, we could make that. No, I won't. It's a bit long for that. Okay, so there we go. We've got ourselves a working route function. So we've already had to cross that bridge for the error handling. So we may as well bring our home.ts up to date with it, because once we do that, then this should work a treat. Okie dokie. So, oops. Right, what am I doing? Change word, context, dot get URL. Do the same down here. Anywhere else? Yes, we do. Alright. No, I probably could have done it with search and replace, but anyway. Okay. Sometimes it's just nice just to do the typing, hey? Okay, so with context.getURL in place, now this should theoretically render, but I just need to finish off the renderer. I think we didn't handle the cases that we needed to in there yet. So here we've got a problem here. We're going to fix that by saying that, all right, if you can't get what you want there, what you're going to do is hit the keyed view bundles and grab the one that has the key of error, which will come back as null eventually, but that's fine because we can jump back into app.ts and add our error bundle in there, or error view. And chuck that into the view bundles. Good stuff. Now, let's take a look back at that renderer. So here we've still got a slight issue. We need to grab that route here. Actions view current route. Okay, so yeah, that's if the error happens, then we need to render that error. So that's cool. We need to go to keyed view bundles and grab error, which again is like using a particular string as a reference for it. Not great, but it will do for now. So let's see. I think we've got everything that we'd need to sort of do some rendering. We've got a problem here because it iterates all over all these routes. Okay, yeah. So we've got this concept of active views, and we need to fix that one up. So yeah, that active views currently has the type of any. That's why it's not raising any alarm bells right now, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it just staying as a problem right now. And we'll just fix that up. So main route to render has become our sort of our view bundle by the looks of it. Yeah, it has. It has become our view bundle. Oh, no, it hasn't. No, that's not true. Because up here, we've got this concept of, this main route to render is missing some information. Let's try and fix this up. So we get in the view bundle here, and that's cool. Maybe we could get the view bundle earlier. That would probably make sense. We might have to do that in a try though, which might not be a good thing. Let's chuck the view bundle on there. Because it totally makes sense if we're going to create an active views item. And this main route to render comes from something. So what is this main route to render? Well, I guess it's got the name of error. And it didn't like that because I grabbed it here. This is actually probably okay because I can do something like this, hey? That might work because now we've got the actual view bundle sitting in here. Now, what else do we need? So we've got the concept of parameters. Not that we need to pass them into the state there, because the state exists separately. But herein lies, I mean, the potential issue is because like you're triggering re-renders while new things are coming in, that might sort of detonate it. So it might be good for the parameters to come into this particular one. In fact, just for avoiding that whole what if new parameters come in, I think I'm gonna have to put that back in. So let's do that rather than sort of leave it as a side concept. Yeah, let's acknowledge that parameters are sort of special. So we'll keep them aside. So yeah, unfortunately I have to walk back that particular, call it a mistake, call it whatever you like, really. But yeah, we're gonna walk that back. We're gonna put parameters in there. So home view, home.ts is gonna have the same thing. It's gonna have the parameters in there. And the parameters are going to be needed for initialize and update. Now, all of them are going to not like this, so we need to update the renderer's type signature for it. And I guess we'll put them in the destroy function too. And I guess it's fine with this because just because we didn't use any of the variables or anything like that, we didn't make any assumptions, we didn't do anything with it. So it's actually fine with this function doing nothing. Anyway, that's just an interesting aside. Well, with all that stuff in place, maybe we've finally earned the right to actually do this. So let's see how we go. So we've got current location dot params. And maybe that's enough. Not quite for the re-renders, because you can see here it's still depending on all of this sort of stuff. But luckily, we don't actually care about route anymore. We care about, once we get to this point, we really care about parameters rather than route. So maybe we can do away with that particular concept. Oh, we could keep it. We could keep it there. And yeah, but view bundle is the thing that's going to determine whether we keep on using things. And now if we drop down to the bottom, so here's the removal of all the stale views, and that's fine. We would probably like if it has a destroy function, we would call it. So we'll go something like view bundle dot destroy, and that would need to be called with all of those particular sort of parameters that we need. So let's see. Unfortunately, this typing is not so great and in fact, I want to deal with that now. Because if we don't deal with it, then it's going to mean that errors are going to slip in that I maybe didn't want to slip in. So let's create an interface for that. So active view record. The interesting thing about it as well is we can actually keep the view states in there. So renderer states should actually contain this. Yeah, renderer state should actually contain this. So now we've got active view state there. And what have we got in it? Well, we have the container, which is going to be an element. We have the view bundle. That's optional because it starts off not existing in there. So the view bundle, and then we'll just go any. Now we have render state, which is again an any, and it's also optional. Oh, I didn't do the typing right. See, it has two meanings. Typing, haha. All right. What else did we use in there? We used parameters and we used a route. Again, an optional. And we'll need to grab a route path from routing as well. And what else do we need? What else have we used in that particular state? We can smoke that out if we get rid of the active views here. All the different places. Container route parameters. I'm looking at just here. Where else we got? Okay, I think container, render state, route, and parameters should be enough. And now I think we're done. So now that we've got that view states and we've gotten rid of active views, what we're going to do instead is go render a state dot view states. Yeah, so we'll go through all of these. We'll change it to render a state dot view states. Oh dear, didn't like that. Okay, renderer state dot view states. Does not exist on element. Okay, so we'll have to pick a different type of DOM element to get that. Okay, let's just keep on going. Keep on trucking through. Okay, so now that we're back up here, we can start to address these type errors. So what are we missing? We've got container, route, and params. And that should be sufficient. But I guess the HTML element doesn't like that. This is not quite a long enough type error, so I'm going to have to look at it here. Let's deal with these one at a time, eh? Okay, I got to deal with the main one here, which is in routing /index.ts. Not routing, renderer. Let's see. These are so ridiculously out of date that I hesitate to believe in them. This one's a bit better. Matcher is missing. Right, okay. And it's because we're missing a matcher in this possible main route to render. So if we just put in a matcher, which is a blank string, then that would be probably sufficient, right? So that settled that element. Okay, now style does not exist on that. So maybe we could just go HTML div element for now. Yep, that silenced that error. Okay, now we've got this concept of route. So that is not correct. What we want to do is update to view bundle. And that's good. Now, down here, this view bundle destroy expects a bunch of arguments. So we need to give it the container. What's next? Let me check all the things that go into this function. We need to give it the parameters. So we need to grab that out of here. We need to give it the app state. So go app state and context. And we are done. Oh, we can do render unit state as well. So okay. getting close, and we can probably get rid of all the new lines here. We don't really need them all. Okay, so it destroys and then immediately gets rid of it and then deletes the view state as well. Now down here, we've got a bit of a problem. This is not set up correctly. So let's grab the view bundle and let's grab the route state. Route stack, route state, I don't know. What am I looking for here? Render state, that's it. So now we can go view bundle update, and then it has container, params, app state, app context, and it just provides the render state as well. Now, we don't actually have anything that updates these render states, so let's go about that. So we just need to pull this. Okay, pull this out, and then we're going to be updating the render state for it based on the result of this function. Sort of like that. So we just give it a bit more space to do its thing. We need to get that render state on the initialize up here. So let's do just that. Render a state. And what do I want to give that a new line. I want to open that up, close that. There we go. Okay. So we've got that same concept here, and this is all a bit verbose, but I'm not too worried about it, and I don't really want to be shunting around these variables too much anyway. Right. And possibly this destructuring is a bad thing as well, but because eventually, like, this will be a fairly hot code path. There will be a lot of stuff running through it, so we do need to eventually deal with that. Now, this is interesting right here. So we've got all of that sort of stuff, but all of the routes are not found because we haven't actually registered any of them. Okay, so that's cool. We can go through and start to deal with that. Where are we at? We're almost at now. So that's cool. What we'll do to finish off, we'll bring the rest of these routes across next stream. But what I want to do just for today is get through and put all of the routes in place and just see that this part of it works. So I should be able to remove the complete home function here. There we go. Okay, let's get rid of you. Bring you in and you. And about. And entry and author. And I think that's it. Indeed, it is it. So now our concept of a route stack is pretty primitive, pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and we should be able to click through to these. And it does seem like if you look in the bottom left corner, you'll see those. Now, if I click through to one of these, we'll get an error where view bundle is not found. We can go back to home. So things are working pretty sweetly right now. We've got ourselves a slide set up that we can sort of leverage to get our way into further things down the track. But that's it's feeling pretty good right now. Okay. What next? What next? Okay. So, sorry, I'm just taking a moment to think. Get rid of this console log here. We can get rid of this one too. We already know about that stuff. So that sort of gives us a fairly good in to getting the rest of the way through this. Like, it's clearly not done yet. Yeah, it's clearly not done yet, but we have gotten a majority of the things that we need to do in the right direction. So we've gotten through this renderer concept, and we've sort of set things up so that we can start to make our way through and really really embrace this view bundle sort of concept. So I'm fairly happy with where we're going, and this will eventually get optimized a bunch, but I mean it doesn't do a whole lot, and we'll keep it that way. And as we go on forward, we'll see how things go, because it turns out that as long as we're not like, this will be a hot code path whenever there are big changes happening, but whenever we have like keyboard centric happening, like any inputs or anything like that, we're not going to be running through this whole cycle. We're going to do our best to avoid it, because the moment we are doing this like at high frequency, like that's like you can end up doing just really weird things to try and keep your whole state tree rendering quickly, and it's better just to isolate the bits that you want to change rather than worry about the whole state tree at that point. But we will get there. Yeah, okay. For now, I'm happy with where we're at. We're obviously, we've taken a few steps back, but we will rectify that in the next stream. So what we'll do, we'll finish up. If there are any questions, please throw them my way. But otherwise, I'm going to finish this up and finish this up, and we will carry it on next stream. So what day was this? It was day 22. And what do? We implement view bundle system for rendering and preload. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just note, some views broken will be fixed on day 23. So we'll add git tag, and that will be day 22. As per usual, this code will be found at github.com/weareoffcider/weekendswebapp, and you can see that already there. Good to go. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll be picking up again tomorrow night, probably. It's a bit later because I got getting the kids to sleep as per usual. So it'll be something like 9:30 for a stream tomorrow night. That's pretty much it from me. Hope you've enjoyed the stream. See you next time.